remember particularly one woman who had a like 8-week-old baby in a sling and a pint of beer, and she just looked so happy. She was like, yeah, I'm in this space and it's totally designed for me.
In Japan, it's a collective culture. Mm-hmm. The creativity is kind of glue for the community.
Mm-hmm. I'm doing it on my own, so sure. I go down to Aldi and buy 20 boxes of brownies.
Yeah.
But I make them look really, really pretty. My little doilies.
I don't know a mum without a snack in her pocket, by the way.
Yeah, I've got like a cookie in my pocket the whole day. I've got like a stash of them. I think the main thing is that people need to feel like they've been thought of.
I was thinking of gathering a group of mothers who are musicians from in and around Bristol, and I had you two in mind because I knew that you were both mothers, but I was a bit nervous about making contact with you because it's like, Rachael, Dad, Beth, Rowley. They were people that I thought were like, you know, probably wouldn't want to engage in that kind of conversation about you know, motherhood. So I remember reaching out to both of you and being so delighted when you were like, yes, I really want and need to have that conversation. So I wonder if I could ask you both, first of all, like, when we first met, what was it like to be asked about what it's like being a mother in your industry, in the music world? Because I think I met you first, Beth.
Okay. I think it was probably a huge relief. I don't think I could really string the sentence together of what I was feeling at that point, because I was definitely quite disconnected from that whole previous, it felt like a different chapter of my life.
Yeah.
But just a huge relief. I think those first few meetings, I was just so emotional, and it was just like a big weight had just taking off all of this, just to talk about this other version of myself, which I've been doing for about 25 years. So it's been going on for a while. Yeah. And then like a handbrake goes on when you have a kid. And well, for me at least it did. I just decided to stop for a while and do this thing. But it's just so all-consuming and full of joy, full of everything. Just such, you know, opposites every day. And music, there was no time in my brain for music. So to finally get to speak with other women and have a laugh and I just could be totally free with everything I was saying, like all the really bad stuff that I didn't want to say to anybody else about how much I was hating it. Yeah. And how much I just missed my other life and just think it was the worst decision I'd ever made, but equally how much I loved it and how much I just had this whole nother side to me, which was amazing. So yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah. I think it's safe to say it was perfect timing for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about you, Rach?
It gave me such an opportunity to put things into words, because I'd been really struggling, like, through the lockdown, single parenting, total disconnection. It felt like a rupture, you know, losing all of my gigs. And then post-lockdown, squeezing out an album, squeezing out a tour, whilst, you know, also being a single mom. And I'd really experienced some, like, sort of deep kind of ruptures of disconnection, burnout, inner conflict, and it just gave me a wonderful, safe, nurturing space and connection with people who knew exactly what I was talking about, to be able to voice all of that. And that's a real turning point when you can voice something confidently, saying all the bad bits too, like really being able to say the bad stuff and be seen and be heard and receive empathy and solidarity. And then from a really, really difficult time, then it felt like from that very first meeting we were all creating an amazing, like, flower bed, and we were just chucking out a bunch of seeds to grow a new way, a new possibility of creating something in like in our community collectively, and the potential and the energy from that. And now we're watching all these seeds growing.
We're going to talk a bit about that.
That's good. So now me and Beth have shared like where we came from, our history, what brought us together. Please, could you share? I'd love to hear like what were the initial sparks?
Sure.
What brought you to set up the Mothers in Music Network?
it was, it seemed like an obvious next step. I'd worked with lots of creative mothers as a coach, and I'd also had a life as a performing musician myself. And I had noticed that along the way there was just a very strong expectation that life of being a performer was, well, obviously it was going to have to end when I became a mother. Those two things seemed totally incompatible. And I'd noticed that, especially during lockdown, I was really craving more creative practice and more connection to other musicians and wanting to play more and play again. And that was sort of blooming in me, but I couldn't work out how to make it work. So I started interviewing mothers from across different arts disciplines, just to find out, like, how are you making this work? Because it doesn't seem possible. And they were sharing with me that their challenges, but they were also sharing with me what appeared to be quite a lot of structural and sort of common problems that were outside of themselves. It wasn't so much about what had changed inside, two things that you've both mentioned, but also what was holding them back structurally, like what we expect to watch music at night time, and it felt really difficult to go out and gig at night. We expect to leave our children behind when we go to consume art as adults. And so there's lots of expectations about what the arts world looks like. And it felt that there were lots of structural and universally experienced challenges that a lot of these mothers were describing. So it felt useful as a coach to say, okay, well, this is the problem, but what should we do to change it? And it sort of brought out this slightly campaigning zeal in me to want to do something. And so just bringing people together in that same space and being mother and being musician, or not just musician performer, but there's lots of people who work in the industry, festival producers, agents, managers have all come to our network meetings. They've all seen a vested interest in that common experience of motherhood. But we needed to start understanding, well, what could it look like if it was working for you as a mother? And that is a very sort of coaching question, a very open question. So let's try and make something work, rather than being constantly feeling unable to proceed and create. So, I mean, you were beginning to share, Rachel, there, like the seeds that got thrown out, and the fertile ground that we started. And that, I think, was born from that question, like, what could we do? What would it look like if it was working better for you? And we had a number of people come to the network who were either pregnant or with very young babies, and we started talking about daytime programming. And you and I had that conversation as well, like, well, actually, one thing that would really help mother artists of very young children, and maybe children who are a bit older as well, but would be to create an audience where we could, like, daytime programming was the norm. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Saturday matinees that you've done and what you've experienced?
Yeah, for sure. So I've got a 5-year-old and I think Sunny was very small, wasn't he, when we first met? And that was one of the main restrictions, I think, for me, just being able to do music and engage with it, was because it was always at night. And I love that it's at night.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I've been doing, that's what I'm used to. So I was reluctant, I think, at first to really, you know, I just wanted to leave them behind and have some me time and go and re-engage with it. And then we spoke a lot about bringing the kids into it and what it would look like to do both at the same time. So to carry on doing the nighttime gigs, and how I could re-engage with that when the time was right, and how we can kind of find agents and find industry, business support, which is actually supportive of the both happening at the same time. So nighttime, a tour could be booked, so there's, you know, predominantly nighttime gigs, but there may be a handful of daytime gigs as well, and that's just standard. Because I don't want to not do nighttime gigs anymore. I'm really excited to get back to, you know, I like being up at night, even though I'm asleep at the moment by 10. So I think the daytime gigs came from that idea, and there wasn't much available. So I just thought, I know how to put a gig on. I've been doing it for so long. It's not going to be, you know, I've not got a ton of, you know, capital to invest in this myself, but I know how to cover the costs. So I know how to get a PA, I know how to get all the essentials. I knew the checklist of what needed to come together for a gig. I just didn't have much money for the promotion, which I realised is the main thing. So I got a few friends to come and help me flyer, and so the local gigs I've been doing, Saturday matinees, we've done 4 or 5 of them so far, and they're just in the local church, 2 minutes from my house, which is essential, so I could get home by 5 and give them their spaghetti. My other half, Liam, is completely on board, and so he has them, or his parents will come. We haven't got parents that live near us, so but they came up for the day, so it was made possible by everybody joining in and saying, let's see what can happen. It's a real learning curve. I wanted to charge normal kind of ticket fee so that we could entice and attract people, artists and performers who are used to, 15 quid a ticket, 10 quid a ticket or whatever, and have it as professional as possible.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been doing. It's covered costs so far. It's completely an experiment, and everybody knows who comes, that there's going to be kids. It's open, kids are free, completely free, just to include everybody in the family environment.
But what have you noticed about your audiences? Is it just, lots of kids with, haggard-looking parents, or like who else are you meeting?
So the Christmas gig that we did, which is the first one, which was a bit of a gamble because it was 2 days before Christmas, and I thought this is probably ridiculous. No one's going to come. But in fact, it was so busy. There was a lot of kids. In fact, the next two, there was almost too many kids. Mm-hmm. So we're just trying to think at the moment how best to maybe jiggle it. Yeah. Because the cost, obviously, side of things, we need to be able to break even, and there's just too many bodies in the room that aren't paying. Yeah. So we're just trying to work it out. But lots of kids, lots of a few teenagers, but mainly toddlers, under 10s, I'd say, people who just really want to bring their kids to an environment where they can hear really good music. And the music is for adults. It's not like nursery rhymes. It's not kids' music. Yeah, it's proper touring professional musicians doing their thing. It's nothing. Yeah. It's not curated for kids in any way. Apart from there's some brownies, which probably isn't helpful because they're all hyper. They're all running. And there's toys at the back so they can be entertained. Yeah. And also the location, like creating a space where you could take kids out if they're being a bit noisy. Yeah. There's a garden, isn't there? So we're trying to think about the audience and how to facilitate parents. But I've also spotted quite a few older people at the gigs, or people who wouldn't normally come to music in the evening. Yeah. So really you're building an audience that is more diverse and actually allows an artist to connect with a different kind of audience. Completely as a whole. Yeah. It seems just really, I know things take a while to kind of bed and become a norm, but it's just one of those things that is a bit of a mystery to me because there's such a market there. Yeah. I don't really understand how the industry, the big wigs sat around, around the business table are kind of like, there's a gap in the market here. Mm. Why are all these venues sat empty? There must be some reasons. I mean, the church is one thing. It's really interesting working with St George's on this project because they'll be able to glean a lot more information about the logistics of putting on a gig and the costs. Maybe there are some reasons why the bigger venues are not hosting things on a weekend when the buildings are empty, but it feels like a missed opportunity to me because there's a huge market. Yeah, I completely agree. We're going to come back to the partnership and the programme with St George's in a minute, but Rachel, can I ask you about the things that you've been developing, because one of those things, like the Saturday matinees, are going to feature in our programme with St George's Bristol, and the gig that you're going to be producing as part of our programme is a project that you're developing called Grove. So can you tell us a little bit about the activities you've been creating as a result of being part of the network?
Although I was just thinking, off the back of all the things that you were just saying, Beth, I was really thinking about the model in Japan, and I think that would flow really well because I was in Japan playing lots of daytime gigs with them, like their very successful model. So can I talk about that now?
Please do, yeah.
Because I've just been formulating that in my head.
Yeah, do it.
So I spent a lot of time living in Japan, and my children are half Japanese, and the culture over there is there's a lot of vibrant creativity, accessible to all ages. In the culture, it's almost as if they eat food, they consume art, and they expose their children to music. It's sort of they live and breathe it, and the gigs and the creativity is kind of glue for the community. And in Japan, it's a collective culture. And so I think because of the collective culture and because of their kind of value systems that they have over there, you know, they will really celebrate and rate like family activity and experiencing something in the collective group, and with a kind of the value of kind of care and nurture is kind of embedded in their value system. And so there is lots of opportunity to put on successful daytime music events.
It's expected. It's what you'd expect as an audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the children, the way they are, like at the gigs, is they're all quite well. Some of them are running around outside. They're being kids and being noisy outside, but there is generally like quiet. So they've cultivated this atmosphere where the children will be quiet, and there's usually food as well. So there's, you know, you go and get your noodles, you go and get your onigiri or sushi, and so the kids, they have their food, everyone has their food, they eat as well. So they're eating and they're consuming the music sort of, and sitting on the tatami, sitting down on the floor. You know, it's these sort of all these experiences coming together, just creating this really lovely atmosphere. And I felt a bit of that atmosphere when we put on our show at the Mount Without.
Let's
just
talk about that.
People sitting on the floor with their babies enjoying the music. It's like, whoa, the magic in that.
It was beautiful, wasn't it?
It's such a lovely experience, and to be able to partake in that as a parent, maybe you're, you know, a mother being able to breastfeed her babe and watch some electronic music.
But it's
So
not
good.
rocket science, you know. Other artistic sectors have managed to put on, like the matinee in a theatre world. It's a complete norm. So we're just shifting the norm, I hope, towards, in this country, towards something that sounds a lot more like you experienced in Japan. And as you say, that's going to require an audience to expect something a little bit different, and to teach and to learn from each other with our children about what being a reverent audience looks like. And that's exciting. That feels like a really exciting cultural shift. And that it's not just grown-ups who have to go out in the evening to consume music or to access their favourite artists, that anybody can. Can I just mention the audience at the Mount Without gig in the daytime? Like, you could see people's faces beaming. I remember particularly one woman who had a like 8-week-old baby in a sling and a pint of beer, and she just looked so happy. She was like, yeah, I'm in this space and it's totally designed for me, and I don't have to worry about anything. I can have a drink and I can have my baby here and I can really enjoy this act. And that felt radical, but it doesn't need to be. It's actually not rocket science. So we'll come on to, why don't we talk about the programme that we've curated? Because for all the network is really dedicated to women who work in the industry. But what we're doing with this programme is to build a daytime audience and a culture of putting on music during the day that allows performers in our network to perform, because they can't do that without the audience, that, you know, to feel that there's a thirst for it from an audience point of view. So we're trying to create this visibility for mothers, because a lot of people come into the network conversation saying, I feel completely invisible now, not just as a mother but as an artist, especially when you take a break in this very fast-paced industry, competitive industry. It can leave you feeling, I don't know how to re-enter. You mentioned that as well.
And it's not only the taking the break, it's that your values shift and you want to write songs from a place of this sort of nurturing spirit that's born in you when you become a mother. And those values, they don't always feel like they're in alignment with the kind of patriarchal values of at least a section of the music industry.
Exactly.
It's changing, but
But it also means
but
that
it can
people
feel isolating and
it's definitely
disconnecting, and it can really shatter your confidence actually.
But it means then that motherhood doesn't get written about. So the question of care and the question of what it means to care for others is not expressed enough.
No,
so what we've heard repeatedly in the network, haven't we? You've been to all of them, is that you have to hide your pregnancy, or you don't talk about your motherhood, or you have to exist as if you're not a mother. Whereas that actually can, as you've just described, really inform and be a hugely rich part of your practice. And so there's something about visibility and creating that platform for the people in our network that feels very much part of this programme that we're creating with St George's. But also and we'll talk about some of the artists, because some of them actually have written about their mother experience.
Changing,
it is changing.
We are paving the way, and there's lots of songs being written about matrescence and motherhood. And
for sure.
songs for our babes.
Well, why don't we mention some of those artists? Because the programme that we've curated is we've got 4 gigs at St George's, and for Bristol residents, you might know some of these names. I'm sitting next to 2 of them, Beth and Rachael. But we've also got Sam Lindo playing, and she's just produced this absolutely glorious album called Ancestry, which is about her ancestral history and her family, and with her new baby in mind, what being an ancestor for her looks like. So she's already bringing that question of legacy and parenting into her story. But we also have an incredible Welsh artist, Ang Harrod, who's coming from Swansea to play at one of our satellite gigs. It won't be happening at St George's, it's going to be happening in one of our local communities, because it's going to happen during the week. So it's not just weekend programming that we're putting on, we're also trying to create opportunities for people to access music during the day, but after school. So you scoop up your kids from school, bring a picnic.
Full tea activity.
Or with
tea.
Go with a
of
picnic.
food. Or people can bring a picnic, or we're asking someone to come make some stew.
Whatever.
Something.
I'm not sure my kids are going to eat your stew, but anyway, they can bring a bag of crisps at least. But to bring the picnic and to bring the culture.
Crisps are a bit noisy.
Okay.
We got to think.
Everyone's going to eat
think
stew.
this one through.
Think about the menu.
But even if it's chocolate brownies, the point is we're going to bring a bit of a culture that you've experienced elsewhere, and bring that idea of bring your picnic, bring your kids. This is an after-school activity, and it's something that you can enjoy with your children. It's not just, but it's also for those people. It's not just for parents. These gigs are also for people who just don't want to go out for any reason in the evening, or find it hard to get out in the evening.
It feels really important to emphasise that these gigs are not just for mothers. Like when we made the poster for the Mothers and Music gig, so many people said to me, "Can I come?
Do I have to?
I'm not a mother, or I'm not a parent."
Definitely.
And so it's really important that we are emphasising that this is for everyone, and that we're thinking about, like you were saying, Beth, we're thinking about the experience of people who are coming in wheelchairs, the elderly, the
people who care for other people,
and people who want to hear the music. They're coming without kids, and they want to be able to listen. So thinking about everybody, and hoping to reach out and welcome and bring. How wonderful to bring so many people from the community together in a space.
That's it.
And also as well, it might not be for everybody, so that's fine. It's okay if you want to just come to a nighttime gig where it's quiet and people listen. I had a few people from the gig saying it's just too noisy. We want to come and pay 15 quid or however much to listen to this person because they're so good. I don't want to be interrupted by kids. In which case, there could be, you can't cater for everybody the whole time.
Well, I think the thing is, the Man Without gig,
there must be a way.
It proved that there was a thirst for a daytime programme because it's worth having kids chattering in order to be able to access the music that you otherwise can't. Because being a parent doesn't just mean that you can't get out at night because you've got children to put to bed, but also it's really expensive getting a babysitter, and it's actually, you're exhausted, you don't have that energy. So for lots of other reasons, you might not want to be going out in the evening. So this is definitely designed for you. But just going back back to the programme and who's performing, because Angharad, I particularly wanted to highlight her because she has written an album about motherhood. And also we've got 2 other artists who I know have really focused on their matrescence, becoming a mother, as the focus, the kind of rich theme that they have focused their creativity on. So I particularly want to also mention Angelica, who plays under My Midnight Heart. She's this incredible American artist who's come to Bristol. She joined our community because she needed to meet some people. You know, she was like, I'm in Bristol, I've just landed. And she's just had her 2nd child. And I went to see her perform at the Saffron Summer Party, because Saffron Records, a Bristol-based record label that supports women and non-binary artists. And she has been on their sort of artist development programme. And her whole set was about her matrescence, her motherhood. And I said to her afterwards, I'm so pleased that you played and talked about matrescence. Use that word. It's not even a word that's recognised. And she said, I was so nervous. I was so nervous about, you know, how well it would be received. And what she said was, people in the audience who weren't parents, they learned something. They appreciated it. They valued that.
What matrescence is.
That exposure.
Because so many don't know. It's not in the dictionary.
It's not even in the dictionary.
Yeah. Should we say what it is now?
Well, the word matrescence means to become a mother, and it was coined in the 1970s by an academic whose name I've forgotten. But most recently, it was written extensively by Lucy Jones in her book Matrescence, and it's a word that needs to be explored. When you put it into a Word document, it's got a red squiggly line under it because people don't recognise it as a process. Just like adolescence, the question of becoming a mother is not fully recognised.
It can take a decade.
Oh,
it can be ongoing.
Well, let's go back to the artists. So we've got Angharad, who's playing in November, and she's going to be playing at one of our satellite after-school gigs in Easton. And we've got Angelica, My Midnight Heart, who's playing, I hope, at the Tobacco Factory in January. But we've also got Jenny Lindfors, who plays under the title Sailing Stones, and she is amazing, and she's just launched, or she's just finished producing an album which is all about her matrescence. It's about the colours, the varied experience, the huge emotional fluctuations that we experience when we become a parent. And she is launching that album as part of this programme at St George's, so I'm really excited to have her on board as well. So those are the people that are particularly focusing on motherhood, but we've also invited all the artists in this programme are mothers. I hope one day it won't be about creating the platform for the mothers that are part of our network and beyond it. I hope one day it'll be for any artist who wants to access or produce music in the daytime, and that they have then an audience that is absolutely excited about them coming to town and playing. So I think there's a really good kind of win-win scenario here for all the artists on board. But some of the other artists that we've got playing, we've got the Vilk Collective, who are really exciting, kind of experimental. Roxana Vilk is, I think, Iranian, and she sings in her mother tongue, and she really is encouraging a whole language of music, particularly around nursery rhymes, and she's been running a beautiful project with parents around nursery rhymes and connecting to mother tongue. So there's a lovely opportunity to see the Vilk Collective at St George's, Bristol in December. We've got Gemma, who's the most brilliant, also an electronic artist. She's going to do a double bill with Angelica, My Midnight Heart, at the Tobacco. JMA, exactly. And she played at Our Mount Without, and she kicked off the event. And she was one of the mothers in our network who said very explicitly, in this space, I can be both mother and artist simultaneously. I don't have to separate and split those two roles and pretend I'm not one when I'm being the other.
She's an electronic musician, and so the like that world is quite male dominated, and she had been really struggling at not being able to even mention that she was a mother.
It's amazing how many people have to hide it or lie about it.
And I love that, I can't remember her name, the one that you went to see at the Saffron event.
Angelica.
I love that Angelica is an electronic musician who's writing about matrescence. Like that
we need that representation.
And then Harriet talked about, to me, she said, I really think it's going to shift my audience, and I was worried about that, and maybe my label was worried about that, or my management was worried about that. But you're also shifting at that point in your career, so it doesn't seem irrelevant that maybe your audience shifts with you. But also the idea that we're building an audience that would be so receptive to that question about what it means to become a mother feels very, very exciting. Beth, do you want to talk a little bit about your gig? Have you got any surprises up your sleeve for your gig at St George's, Bristol?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So this is long awaited. I finally got another live agent, which was really the person that I've missed in the team. Of, I felt completely adrift without, like, I've not had, there's been periods where I've not had a manager, and that's fine. In the album cycle of things, that's fine. But not having an agent it had a big effect on me, because I just felt like there was no connect with the venues and the promoters, because I just needed to gig. So I knew quite a few people, so I could engage with. I'd kept some connections, so I could book some gigs on my own over the last 4 years. But essentially, when I was pregnant, I'd not long had my first little boy, and the agent that I was with, it was just during COVID. There was lots of different reasons, I'm sure, why they decided it wasn't. They weren't going to keep me on the books, basically. But it was the worst timing for me, because I was just at that point where I was like, as long as I've got an agent, even if I'm not doing anything, it's no skin off their nose. Just keep me on the books quietly. I felt like someone was breaking up with me, and I was trying to be like, what have I done? And it was just such an awful place to be. Confidence just went right down, especially because I was in the house the whole day, all the time. He wasn't feeding, and it was quite a stressful time. And I just felt like, but my experience kicked in. I was like, I've been doing this too long. You've had agents before, Beth. It's not a big deal, but it was coupled with this new motherhood experience where I was just so, I just felt like I was, just cut off from that world completely.
And therefore cut off from your ability to
connect with it.
But also, generate an income. And at the very basic level, you weren't able to do your job.
For sure. So I was doing session work. I'd been performing with a few different people. The Jules Holland band was amazing, because he was really supportive. I was, with both my pregnancies, I was doing gigs with him when I was like 6-7 months pregnant.
Amazing.
And one of the other singers that has been with him for a long time has got a teenage daughter now, and she's made it work the whole time. In fact, I've spoken to her to maybe get her to come and talk with us, because she's made it work, and it's quite amazing. But so for me, getting another agent after all this time was really great, because it just connects me with the network of venues, basically. So that's really great.
Can we talk a little bit about that? Because actually, the music industry is huge, and it is complex, and it's not just artists, and it's not just a manager and a venue. There's a lot of moving parts in an industry as big as this, and it's hugely commercial. So it's got to work at a financial bottom line. It's a business. Sure. However, it is trying to support people who have come to making music because they are naturally gifted, as you both are, but also they have a desire to express themselves through this thing called the arts and through music. And in fact, the arts make up a huge part of our economy. So there's also like an economic reason to keep people afloat. And you mentioned lockdown, I think, Rachael, and how, the industries were decimated in so many ways, particularly live performance, and that you've had to kind of claw your way back into that. But I want to talk about how it's going to be necessary, I think, for different elements of the industry to understand what the differing needs are of mothers as they return back to their job. That for somebody who's breastfeeding, they might need somewhere to breastfeed. For someone who's touring, they might need to bring their family or caregivers with them. They might need to be able to, I remember you telling that story about going to sound check at a pub and they wouldn't let your baby in.
Yeah, and my sister had to take him to the all-you-can-eat Indian for about 3 hours. To the buffet.
But you didn't know that was going to be a problem until you were confronted by a venue saying, sorry, that's not possible.
And it wasn't a problem like anywhere else. So it was a shock. And how old was Shuki then? He was probably 4 months old.
I want to just reference the fact that this industry is beginning to change. There are artists who we've talked to who are referencing, I know I actually had a very supportive manager who understood what my touring schedule was going to look like. And there needs to be growing awareness of the challenges mothers face, which previously and until this point really have been quite hidden. Mothers often haven't wanted to say this is difficult for me, because they feel like they're going to be passed over and they are not going to be able to remain visible in their industry. So they've kept quiet about what the challenges are and what they need in order to sustain their careers. So we're going to need to be able to have slightly more open conversations with PR agencies and venues and managers and agents across the board. The industry is going to need to be open to a conversation about these challenges so that mothers can sustain their careers. It's a job, and it's something that they need to be able to do to put food on the table. But you've also, Rachel, mentioned how motherhood has meant a shift in your career. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that.
And then tell me a little bit about your gig and what we're going to experience there.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. So motherhood not only has brought a shift in my career. I think before the shift in my career came a shift in my values, and I've spent a long time sitting with it and journaling and writing out my values and having coaching sessions with you and like what is it ultimately that I love about music, and for me it's connection, it's community, and it's connection. And so before I would be connecting with my band and connecting with audiences far away, and then coming home to my four walls, being a mum, and really like feeling that disconnect and that disconnection. So I decided that I wanted to grow community where I lived, and shift my musical activity from being like centre stage to holding space for people and making well-being like the primary not only for the people I'm holding space for, but for me, because when my cup gets emptied, which it kept getting emptied and I kept getting burnt out, then I'm not being the best mum, and I can't look after myself. So now my priority is keeping my cup full, and so I've just spent a year like shifting to holding choirs, holding like intergenerational singing groups, singing with people with disabilities, joining the refugee orchestra, the Dovetail Orchestra, and setting up Milk, which the letters of which stand for Musician Mothers in Loving Kinship, where we meet and improvise together, and we're building we're building friendships. It's a safe, nurturing space for people to try out different ways of being, new instruments, a different way of expressing themselves in safety. There are no mistakes.
You're building a lot of confidence in me, like knowing that I can come and practice and improvise and try something out. It's the early stages of building up my confidence to maybe perform again. But honestly, that space is unusual, and it's really, really valued. Everybody who comes.
It's growing friendship and community, which is probably my like at the top of my values. I want friends, guys. It's friends. When I have friends, when I'm playing music with friends, like that's it for me. Like I do like performing, and I sometimes like being centre of attention. But it's not my primary, like it's not top of my values anymore. So growing community and growing diverse community, which is why I've started all these different groups, and I'm really excited to be part of this program that we're programming, but also combining it with my group, like my idea of cultivating diverse community at a daytime regular event called The Grove, where my choirs come to sing, they collaborate with the refugee orchestra, my intergenerational group will come and sing a song with everybody, and Milk will be there doing our thing, whether that's improving or we might have like got some songs ready as a group to share by then. But like the eclecticism in there, the different musical genres, people from different backgrounds, and this is filling my cup. It's like a brimming over, which I didn't experience. Like I used to get that momentarily with like being with my band for the weekend, but then it would be, bye guys, see you in 2 months.
Yeah.
So it's the continuation of seeing these friends each week on week and building something together.
Yeah.
I think that's true. I've never felt more sort of connected to my musician self by being in that room with other people who are making music and having conversations with people who are musical again. And I'd say it exceeds what I experienced before as somebody who just toured with the band. Absolutely. I was sort of playing a bit of a role there, but this feels like a completely different chapter, partly because of this community that's being built. And I think it's important that we all share that common experience of just what it means to have those 2 hours a week. Like, it's really difficult to carve out and create that time to develop your creative practice. I meet it routinely in my coaching space where people are really struggling to understand how to justify it and give permission for it. But as you've described, by understanding how your values have shifted since you've become a parent, you've understood that that creative outlet or that ability to express yourself creatively is filling you up and enabling you to do everything else you do in life better, or from a better perspective. But this gives us a little moment to just reset and just talk about what audiences might expect from our programme. So like, we've described some of the artists who are playing, and I'm so excited about the full programme because it represents a lot of musical genres. It's different ages of mothers and where we are in our mothering. It's building a platform for us to perform, but it's also building an audience who can access live music at a different time of the day. But we're also very lucky that St George's Bristol have offered us this opportunity to collaborate with them. You mentioned the promotional element and how hard it is to get out there. And what we're doing here is bringing together your Saturday matinees and Grove and the potential of that growing. And we're bringing it under a banner which St George's Bristol and us are working together on, called Lightime Music. And as it suggests, it's happening during the daylight hours, which in the winter months are going to be shorter, but
not be quite
daytime. But anyway, and what we're trying to do is build on other practices that already exist. You know, so daytime music in London has been a program that you've enjoyed and performed at before. Daylight music, and the Daylight Collective down in Exeter, run by Lizzie Humbert, that organisations are really helping instill the normality of daytime programming, and it's encouraging people to come out of the woodwork and say, yeah, we want to do this too. So, but there's going to be a few differences, isn't there? And we're going to experiment slightly with how we program an event. You know, people with young children around have a shorter attention span, just like their children do. So we might be looking at how we program artists. What's your experience of the Saturday matinees? What do you think we can expect to be different?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a learning curve. So I'm still, I can't say that there's a set. I've not yet hit or worked out what the set guidelines are for what really works, because it's different every time. Like the summer gig that we just did, because it's summer, everybody's away. Yeah, it could just be on that one day everyone was away, or is it just something to learn from that in the summertime numbers are lower? So it's very, very new ground, I suppose. Which I think is fine. You know, I think, you know, for the people that are scheduled on that day, it's a bit of a shame because I'm kind of bigging it up and saying they've been completely sold out. So be prepared for, it's quite noisy, but then people are quiet when you're performing. You know, I kind of give them a heads up. Yeah. But then the last one, we just broke even on it. But it was actually, it was very different, better in some ways, because you could actually, people could listen, and there wasn't quite so frantic, and there wasn't quite so many bodies in the room. So there were pros and cons for big numbers and not so many. But I feel like the main takeaway is that the thing that really works is that people just feel really welcomed. And I've really tried to think, you know, with like even down to the foods that, you know, the nibbles. I mean, it's not like we've got loads of top, you know, like we're not sponsored by the bakery, for example. Like it's not expensive
Let's
stuff.
get sponsored by the bakery.
I mean, it's not I'm doing it on my own, so I go down to Aldi and buy 20 boxes of brownies. But I make them look really, really pretty on little doilies, and you know, and
everybody's thought about it.
But you know what? It's you know, kids need something to eat. I need something to eat because I run around being, you know, setting it all up, and then I get up and perform. So I just need something to eat quickly. But
I don't know a mum without a snack in her pocket, by the way.
Yeah, I've got like a cookie in my pocket the whole day. I've got like a stash of them in there. But yeah, I think the main thing is that people need to feel like I've thought like they've been thought of, like you were saying, like we were saying before. Just you know, if like you can't please everybody all the time, which I think's fine.
Sure.
I don't think that's fine. If it's not for you, then that's. But I feel like there's enough of a nod to, you know, accessibility, and then if you need to go and be quiet, or if you need to come late, that's fine.
Yeah.
Or if, you know, like it's all fine. Like there's no judgment, but we do try and it needs to feel professional.
Yeah.
So, you know, there need to be it needs to be presented as professionally as possible. If people are paying money for a start, like if I'm going to go to a gig, certain things need to be taken care of. You know, but at the same time, that approach of care, and it is a community thing. Like we are trying to get people out of their houses to come and listen to music who maybe haven't come out during the day to hear music, and to think, okay, maybe, you know, 15 quid might not be possible, so a sliding scale of ticket price is essential as well, which I know you've talked a lot about that as well. So that's
for inclusivity.
There's that
sliding scale.
Yeah, so there's that side of things which I think is really important. But then also, just make it, if people feel seen and heard, and then they get to come and be really lifted and have their spirits really lifted because the people that we've got performing are really amazing, which is what's the word? It's you know, who I think is amazing might not be who the next person, but they're all people who are making a living, or they're seeking to make a living. They're professional, semi-professional. They're people who are,
despite the challenges, they're making it work. I think also, like, when you become a parent, like, your sense of purpose and drive changes. That's what I routinely talk with mothers about in my coaching space. But, you know, when you're seeing somebody persevere with a career which is hard enough anyway, whether you have children or not, and then making it work, as you've all described, in the different various ways that you can, you're chipping away at making it work because it's important to you. It's important to you and therefore your family. And it's important to our cultural scene and our cultural language to understand what it is like to be a performer at the age and at the point in our lives that we are. So that feels really, really essential. So I want to talk a little bit more about the partnership with St George's, because they have been, you know, you mentioned promotion earlier as being essential to, like, making this work, and it is absolutely true. If people don't know the gig is there, then we can't pay people properly. It's as simple as that. So St George's Bristol obviously has huge reach, but they've seen it as an opportunity for them to build their own audience, and to also pay attention to the artist development that they feel is their responsibility as a big and established venue in Bristol. So I want to really celebrate that partnership that we're creating with St George's, because
thank you so much.
thank you, because without it we wouldn't be able to make this programme work, and it's very rare for an organisation like St George's to be prepared to work with us to create a programme and then promote it as widely as they're doing, and to, you know, have us on this podcast and in the room to be able to talk about the value and the importance of such a network and such a platform for the artists that we are meeting in our conversations. So I really want to celebrate that, and to invite others to come along and to get involved with this model of developing an audience for daytime programming, which can only be win-win-win. I can't see anybody who loses out. You know, the venue gets another audiences get an opportunity to see artists play that they want to see, and artists get an opportunity to perform in a way that works for them, or more than once, you know, a touring artist. I think there's a different audience as well. Those people who are going to come in the evening probably wouldn't go in the afternoon, and vice versa. So I think that, you know, what we're doing is we're creating quite a lot of wisdom in this programme. We're gathering an understanding of what it's like to be an artist in these environments. We're gathering an understanding about what venues need to do differently to facilitate and support mothers at this point in their careers. And we're also understanding and going to be collecting ideas from an audience about how it works for them. So we're building this lovely case study, and we really want to encourage other venues to take part in this and build this model for them, because then we're building a network of touring opportunities for the artists that we're really interested in our Mothers in Music network. So, you know, quite a part. It doesn't have to. Ultimately, it would be lovely if it was to appeal and to benefit all artists. It's not just about the mothers.
Yeah, I was going to say that, because the St Anne's gigs have predominantly been people from Bristol that I know who happen to be mums, but a couple of people, and I've spoken to Katie Brooks about it, and There's a couple people I have in my mind for the Christmas one, which I've not confirmed yet, so I won't commit, but the Christmas one's going to be really good. But I think for me, even though it's been sparked by the mother's performance opportunity conversation, the version of me which I'm most familiar with, because I've only been a mum for 5 years, is to make it's for everybody.
It's for everybody,
It just needs to be part of our daily fabric of touring.
Yeah.
That there's daytime opportunities as well, which I now will be able to, benefit from.
Yeah, exactly.
But then also the previous version of me will be like, wicked man, I'm like in Birmingham or in Manchester on a Saturday afternoon on tour.
Yeah.
I would be charity shopping or, or whatever I'm doing. Yeah. But actually let's do a wicked gig, what else are we doing? Let's go.
So what we're also gathering wisdom about is how we're going to promote it, what the messaging is. Yeah. So in fact, from a sort of PR or marketing point of view, there's a lot of wisdom that we're gathering in this partnership with St George's Bristol, and a huge shout out to Ben Spencer for really picking it up and running with it as an idea. So I just want to maybe end on this idea that it's the mothers in the room that have made something happen. We've galvanized ourselves, and just by getting together and talking about what we need in order to make something work for us, we have taken on that mantle and we've taken on that challenge, and we are finding the doors are easy to open once we ask for what we want, but it is our initial resourcefulness and courage which is something that I've learned in motherhood. I'm learning that being courageous and resourceful in motherhood is allowing me to be courageous and resourceful elsewhere and professionally. So I just wanted to big up the mums who have galvanised and made something happen.
And just the strength in numbers, and I feel that we're more than the sum of our parts, because it's kind of the connection that we feel, and it's kind of bringing all of these things into sort of potential, that we're making stuff together, because when you do stuff together it's really fun.
It is.
It's really fun.
It's the most fun part, isn't it? It's like the reason for everything else is like the pie chart's divided up into 95% boring hard work, but then that last piece of the pie is so it's the potency of that bit over outweighs everything else.
Oh, and I'd just like to say, as well as fun, it's like we're holding each other. When we were putting on the Mothers in Music, there's four of us on the team, all mothers, and we took it in turns to be like, I'm overwhelmed this week, or I've just come on my period. I can't actually do.
There was a lot of talk about menstrual cycles, wasn't there? I'm not in a good way this week.
The others have got it, holding it, and we sort of we took it in
rally around.
turns.
I think that's something I'm very proud of, that we produced that gig in a way that really allowed us to parent. And in fact, if there's another thing that we're doing here is sharing with a venue like St George's Bristol that there is a way of operating which allows us to take care of our children. Like, for example, we couldn't have had a meeting at 3 p.m. in the afternoon because I got to collect my kids at that time. Understanding what the general needs are and saying, well, that's not going to work for me because, or this would work better, is allowing a venue and a relationship with someone like St George's Bristol to just understand what those challenges might look like in practice and for them to respond. And so far, when we've asked for what we've needed, there's been a really positive response. So I have a lot of faith that the industry is open, but we want to encourage and instill that culture of conversation and positivity and solution that maybe hasn't existed until quite recently.
I've been really excited about getting together, coming up with a plan, working out the stepping stones to how you're going to do that, then just doing it. And it's like, right, okay. If we could have, it's doing it together and having the support, and it feels like connecting to this greater thing, which it kind of goes into all sorts of other things as well, like whether you've got an elderly parent that you're looking after and you have to stop connecting with your creativity, or whatever it is that happens in life that means you have to stop for a while. If you've got support, if you've got someone you can go, but it literally is a lifesaver. And I think connecting with that part of ourselves, which is filling your cup up first. It's like, I feel completely useless if my cup is empty. And I think for a while I was eking each day by on the little dribble at the bottom without realising it, because actually you can do that quite well. I feel like I'm blagging it, like I blag really well on a little bit at the bottom. but it's not good, because then you realise actually you're in a room with other people who go, and you leave feeling amazing and you've connected emotionally, you can feel it getting bigger, and it feels like then you can actually do these things, and it's you can't argue with it when you see stuff happening. Then you meet someone like Ben here and he's like, You
Let's
can do
do
that.
it.
You're like, really?
Great.
Yeah, great. Okay, let's do it before you know it.
Well, I think
Just
it's because
happy.
it's a really simple idea.
Yeah.
It's a really simple response to a very entrenched problem which nobody has until recently really explored and discussed openly.
Yeah.
And now that we're beginning to say openly what the problem is,
We can
people
do
are
it.
responding really positively.
Yeah.
So, fingers crossed that continues.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how to bring this conversation to an end, but we've got to, ladies. We've got to. You've got to get in the car with your
Our
kids and go to
garden
them.
is growing.
Yeah.
All
It
the-
is.
the many
They're probably
different-
waiting in the car for me. They'll probably be asleep, so that's good. We could just say bye.
We could just say bye.
See you here.
We'll see you. Hopefully, anybody who's listening, I hope we're going to see you at our gigs, because that is really the excitement for us, is producing a programme of gigs that helps share the brilliance that's part of our network, the Mothers for Music Network.
And you can find out all about the programme and the gigs.
Yes.
Good point. Well, at St George's Bristol, they're going to be promoting our gigs on their roster of gigs, but also we'll be listing them at my website, mamacoaching.org, and you can find out more about the Mothers in Music Network there as well.
And we're about to launch our Instagram.
We're going to launch an Instagram account for Mothers in Music UK. I think that's what it will be. So have a look on there, sign up and join us as we keep exploring together.
Yeah. Amazing, exciting.
There we go. Done.